watching CramerSez. Welcome. We're going to try this one more time. We had some gremlins in the machine, some ghosts in the machine, and so now we're glad to say we think we've got all of that worked out. With that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. Stormy, hopefully you can hear me. I know I can hear you. So let's get back to what we started with initially. The reason that we're having this conversation tonight is because although Stormy, like many other people who believe in Q, think one thing doesn't mean that we have to be enemies. And there's been some people I have a disagreement. I don't think that's the case. But Stormy and I have had conversations before on the same subject and are here tonight to talk to other people about it, because the question I have to ask is, why is Q still a thing? Still a thing after the last 4 years that we've been through. So with that being said, and that mindset, and I want to learn more about why you think what you think. Right? I'm going to press your heart on some of these issues and some of the questions I have. So the first question I think we should start with is, who is Q?
Who knows who Q is? I mean, it's a psyop. And do you ever know who runs a psyop? To be honest.
Okay, so that begs the question, if it's a psyop, which means it wants to get somebody to do something aligned with their agenda, not with your agenda per se, but with their agenda. If you don't know who they are, why would you follow an authority that you don't know what their agenda is?
Well, the question is with Q, right? There's a big push on QAnon. There's no such thing as QAnon. There's Q and there's Anons, right? So Q is the piece that posts questions for people to research. And a lot of people researched. Now, with every psyop, you have infiltrators and you have other psyops branch off of the original psyop. So Q is the foundation that a lot of people do significant research on. And I think if you strip away all of the opinions, I think the biggest thing that came from Q is citizen journalist, right? I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Q. I wouldn't be doing about 300 and some episodes on a podcast trying to get my opinion out there. So a lot of what you see is opinions, right? So you have opinions that are way far left. You have opinions that are way far right, some way out there opinions. I mean, I personally have some way out there opinions, but that hasn't came true yet, but we'll see what happens. But when it comes to just the basis of the Q post, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. With that, I don't think they've been wrong yet. They've talked about the meeting on the tarmac. They've introduced us to 9/11, a lot of different false flags.
Well, don't you see a lot of that, though, Stormy? Don't you see a lot of that as there's a potential that there's coincidence? I mean, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that it's a lot of coincidence, right? But if you're looking for something to be true, just like the writings of Nostradamus, you'll find something to align with what you believe.
I mean, Nostradamus did predict birds flying into a building. So,
but that's
I mean,
not
how would you describe a plane back in the 1200s? I mean,
but again,
it looks like a bird.
That's my point. Is that if you look for meaning in something, then you'll say, well, that means this. We can do that with a bunch of different things. Just because things correlate doesn't mean that they're causative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I will say with the Q posts, there's been so many coincidences. How many coincidences do you have to say it's not a coincidence?
Well, give me an example of that. What's a coincidence?
There's so many. I mean, the Hillary emails, Anthony Weiner. I mean, all that stuff came true. I mean, look at what's happened to P. Diddy right now. We've Pizzagate's coming back in the news left and right.
But when you say
there's all kinds of coincidences,
see, that's where, because I went through the Q information when it first came out, the drops, and read through, and I never saw P. Diddy pop up anywhere in any of those. In those drops. So what you're doing is you're associating.
No, but they talked about pedophilia, right?
Well, yeah, but see that's what I'm saying is that when something comes in that aligns with what your belief is, you're assigning it to see what we told you. We told you that this was going to happen. Well, we know that there are pedophiles out there. We know that there are men and women who have been leveraged by having themselves videotaped. Tim Burchett said that the other day, a few weeks ago.
Exactly.
But that's been going on for eons. I mean, they were doing that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They were doing it back in the 30s. They were catching people, on camera, and then leveraging that against them. The point that I'm trying to make here is, why do you align that automatically with someone is exposed for being, a turd? Why do you automatically assign that and say, well, see, that's what Q said would happen?
Do you think it's a coincidence that Q talked about it in 2017, 2018?
Well,
and now there's so many different scenarios coming out about Hollywood being possibly child trafficking.
But that was in the 80s. We had that in the 80s as well. That's nothing new. The Corys came out of the 1980s and 1990s.
But did what was happening in the 80s, did that wake people up?
Well, no, it's not. It's not that we were aware of it. I was aware of it in the entertainment industry. We talked about it. We knew what was going on. We talked about it. A guy in Indianapolis by the name of Gary Hoffman was sued because he was molesting guys in a radio station here in Indianapolis, WNAP, back in the day. So,
but I'll also say, Q woke up a lot of people to the corruption in the government and the mainstream media, the two big factions of what we're fighting against today, right? Okay. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. I think that there was, when Q began or whatever it was, I don't know what the purpose for it was. But what I know now is it stopped. There's been no further Q drops. And there's a belief that, and we can get into this here in just a moment, but there's a belief that Trump is in charge, that the military's in charge, and they picked Trump to be their leader. And that a military coup happened in 2020 after the election, and Trump is still in power and just allowing what Biden's doing to be done to showcase to everybody how bad everything is. Am I wrong in that belief structure of Q?
So I will say that is an interpretation of Q. So that's where you have the interpretation of the Anons, right? Q never talked about, Trump being a president or doing what they call that martial law or, suspending the Constitution. What Q talked about was trust the plan, right? So I'm sure that's one of the things you want to throw at me, trust the plan. But trust in the plan is waking people up, being able to do your own research. Local action has national impact.
Where is that written down as that's the plan? Q never says that the plan that I'm the thing that I'm doing for you.
Exactly.
They never say. Q never says this is the plan. Go research and learn these things and awaken yourself. Right?
Q never says Trump is going to be the president during the Biden administration either, but Q does talk about shadow presidency and shadow government. And if you look back through history, I believe you would agree there's been a shadow government. Most people would say back to JFK, when JFK did his famous speech about secret societies. But I would argue recently I was of the belief it probably went back to World War I, but to be honest, it probably goes all the way back to Abraham Lincoln when the shadow government took place post the Civil War, because we're in a very similar situation. Unfortunately, it's taken longer than what I thought it would, but Lincoln didn't win his election right away. Actually, Davis won. And then shortly after, they found out there was some nefarious happenings, and Abraham Lincoln was your president. Well, so I mean, so a lot of this stuff is interpretation of Anons that goes viral and people see it. So you're taking a human interpretation of Q and posting it out everywhere. So I mean, Trump being so. Do you really think Biden is running the country right now? To be honest,
absolutely not.
Serious question.
No, he's not running the country, but neither is Trump.
Nope.
See,
so who is it?
Well, it's Obama. It's Susan Rice. It's the Virginia. What was her name? Oh, what's the one that overthrew Ukraine? Victoria Nuland? It's that crew. It's James Comey. The people, it's Clapper, it's Brennan, it's all the people that lied. Those 51 military, what do you call it? What were they called? The 51...
51 intelligence officers?
The 51 intelligence officials.
Yeah.
That's who's running this country right now. It's not Obama. It's not Biden. But I think that there's a group of people that think that if we keep our mouths shut, that somebody's going to come save us. And what my message has been is that if you think sitting back and waiting for someone else to come save us is going to save us, then you're not thinking what the founding fathers were thinking. I mean, do you understand that point of view?
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand. But I will say, if you step back and look at the entire movement since Q came on, there's so many independent journalists. Look at what you do. Look at what I do. So many other podcasters. We ask the questions. We're debating on what mainstream media is showing us, and we know it. I mean, you can't sit down and watch NBC, MSD, and you can't watch any of these news channels and even think that what they're sending you is a truth.
Well, let me ask
a lot of people are coming to podcasters to try and figure out what exactly is going on in the world today. Just look at the report outs on the SCOTUS ruling of Trump the other day. I mean, they're literally calling him Hitler, and he now that they're calling for Biden to do drone strikes on Trump. I mean, it's just
my question has been the entire time is that I was involved politically before COVID happened and all of that. And I worked at the top level of Indiana and some on occasion national runs or big state runs for other states.
Yeah.
But my point is this: is that I'm an inquisitive person to begin with, and the moment I started seeing, I would watch the news and go, "Oh, that's bullshit. You're lying here," and I could see it because I'm in the business, but I look at it and. Through the lens of 2020, is that on a daily basis they were gaslighting us. And,
for sure.
And so that was, Stormy. That's what I questioned. And my question to that is that when you're being gaslit, do you require this entity out there known as Q to be the instigator? Say, hey, go check this out. I think what it was I think it was the ability. I think two things happened. I don't know who Q is, and if I don't know who you are, I give you no authority. I can't, because I don't know who you are. I don't know what your agenda is. It's just the way I am. I don't take your word.
I have an idea who Q is, but that's also my interpretation of Q, right?
Well, sure.
And there's probably a million different interpretations of Q.
And as soon as you say it, by the way, as soon as you say it, everybody else that doesn't agree with you is going to come. Oh, he's a hack. He's a paid shill. He's paid opposition.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think if you go back to all if you go through the classified documents back in the day, Project Mockingbird, Project Paperclip, all those things. I think there is an ability. Look at our artificial intelligence. Let's just look at that, right? There's the ability to be able to, if this happens, what's the effect? Cause and effect. I think there's so much technology out there that we are not made aware of. How are we still running on gas vehicles for 100 plus years, and there's nothing new, right? So there's so much more technology out there. There's the ability. Now, I also believe sound waves, right? Sound waves never go away. I think there's the ability to look back in the future. There's the ability to look into the future based on sound waves. And I think that's what Q is. It's a huge artificial intelligence computer to where you put in scenarios, and maybe it's even, we talk about the ether, I'm drawing a blank. What's his name was able, with all his technologies that John Trump was able to get access to when he passed away. Tesla. I think he was able to tap into the ether and be able to to maybe do a little bit of time travel. I don't know. I mean, I could be crazy. I could be wrong. Q could be a person. It could be a military complex. It could be, I don't know. But what does it matter what Q is if it woke a lot of people up and asked and gave them ability to ask questions and question the current narratives? And I absolutely agree. Gaslighting.
If that's the case, and it was to wake people up, and the nation obviously isn't awake because we're going into an election here where we're in a constitutional crisis right now, right? Why have the Q drops stopped? At a time where it's imperative that people have leadership and guidance on where to go next, why have the Q drops stopped? I've wondered that myself. Why have it stopped? I mean, will there be another Q post? Who knows? Maybe not. Probably not. But if Q served its mission and is done, why would it need to ask any more questions? Because we kind of know what to look for now. The template's been written. We know how to what is that? What are
investigate.
You looking for? Let's step back through this one. See, because people gloss over those like everybody understand what that is. So what have we learned?
We've learned to question everything. We've learned to research our leaders who are, who's on the ticket for next year. Doesn't matter. How long have we been focused on federal leaders? President, Congress, Senate, SCOTUS. But who knows who your local leaders are? Who's your state Congress? Do you even know who your governor is? I mean, it's caused us to step back and look at our more local, because if you go back to the Constitution, it's all about the states. The states have the power to completely reverse absolutely everything the federal leaders do. So I think it's woken us up. There's podcasters out there doing research on your state Senate runners, your state Congress runners, your congressmen. I think that's where the powers come from. I mean, if you'd have asked me 4 years ago who my local congressman is for the state, I would have had no idea. But now I know
that now. So my question has been what are you doing with that knowledge? You've had 4 years to research. The Q people have had 4 years to research, and it's my theory that if Q had not been told to sit down and trust the plan, that there would have been 4 or 5 or 6 million people in D.C. marching on a regular basis because of what's been going on. It's my contention that the Q phenomena told everybody, hey, somebody else is doing all the heavy lifting for you. You've researched, now just sit back and let us handle the rest of it. That's what I view it as.
And that's unfortunate. I don't think a lot of the Q followers believe that. A lot of the Q followers now are going to school hearings where they're going in and pushing back against these porno books being in their school district.
But don't you think that would happen anyway? And when I go talk to these people that are actually doing that, they have no idea who Q is. That's my point. Well, they're not aware of it. What happened, I believe, is that we had 2020 because Q began before 2020, right? The Q phenomena started before 2020.
Yep.
And I think in 2020 people had a lot of time on their hands to be able to look into what was actually going on, and I think that opened up a lot of people's eyes just seeing what the government was willing to do, and the lies that they were willing to tell, and the mandates. The demands that they were willing to put on the public, I think that was an eye-opener. And when you talk to people, you ask, well, was Q your awakening? They go, no, I was getting lied to. I mean, how do you answer to that?
Well, it'd be interesting to see how many of those were woken up by an influencer of some kind. Maybe a citizen journalist, like a podcaster, like my podcast. I mean, you were huge on TikTok. I mean, how many accounts have you gone through?
115.
I mean, these people are seeing those of like you and myself and so many others that are out here sharing just bits and pieces of information, because the hardest part is figuring out what attracts to someone. I mean, you were a radio broadcaster for how long, and how do you get your audience to grow? Is to how you connect to the people. And if your program is this big, you're not going to connect with anyone. So you have to become laser focused and try and connect with a certain amount of people. And those are the people that'll listen and drive forward and push change. That's why I think there's so many different influencers out there driving this change.
But I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen anybody driving anybody or any change. There's a couple of influencers that I know that have gone on to do stuff, but the average Joe that believes in Q, goes to work every day. They come home, they get online, they look, oh, here's what's going on terrible in the world, and then they don't do anything about it. And those people, in my opinion, would be the first ones to stand. Right? They've got the most faith in the nation. They believe to the core of the Constitution. I just think they've been misguided into sitting back and saying, okay, we've got all this information. We know what's going to happen. So we're going to just put, well, I've been told that if I don't believe in Q, that I definitely don't believe in God. And I don't see the comparisons whatsoever. Q is a man.
You also have to remember that we are preaching to the silent majority, right? And the silent majority, that's significant. Right. So most of the people we're talking to are people that just want to be left alone, just want to go through their lives. But now that, inflation's hit us, people keep going from paycheck to, they used to be comfortable back in 2020, maybe 2019. And now they're pinching pennies to get by day to day. I mean, you're starting to see a lot of people wake up. And I think, that goes all the way back to the Q. In my mind, that goes back to the Q post, not the Q movement, because you have so many people that took the Q post and blew it up into all this hopium stuff, right? Nassar Jassar was blown up in a big deal with the Great Reset, but you can't tell me the American dollar isn't worth 50% less than what it was in 2020. I mean, look at BRICS. I mean, all these countries going away from the American dollar is just a matter of time before we're back to Venezuela and all the dollars going down the city drains. I mean, it's just a matter of time. But that was part of an interpretation from a Q post.
Well, so anybody who's paying attention, that's my point, is that anybody who was paying attention in 2009, when 16 came, realizing there had been a huge structural change in the politics of our nation. We had gone from being a go-along to get-along society to suddenly everything is racist, everything is anti-gay, everything is anti-immigrant, everything is, and that came out of the media. It didn't come out of the mouths of you and I. So if you were paying attention, you saw that gradual, increase. If you were paying attention to what the Obama administration was doing in Ukraine in 2014, if you were watching those documentaries that Roger Stone was doing, Oliver Stone was doing, the documentaries about, Ukraine on fire, and you're finding out what's going on. If you're paying attention, you didn't need Q. Right? And
I agree.
Here's my thing, and I want to get to this because I think it's important. Well, let's take a break. We'll come back. I got a great question for you right after we go through this.
Impact Health Sharing isn't insurance. It's affordable health care.
Impact Health Sharing offers comprehensive medical services, covering preventive care, maternity, accidents, illnesses, and injuries.
Plus, choose any doctor or healthcare provider you trust with no in-network restrictions.
Enjoy the freedom and coverage you need
for your entire family.
To learn more about how you can save 30, 40, even up to 50% on your healthcare costs, call 844-827-2637.
That's 844-827-2637.
CramerSez is everywhere. Twitter, Truth, Instagram, and always on America's fastest growing free speech platform, CramerSez Social. Make your free account today at CramerSez.com. You're watching CramerSez.
We're back doing a special 4th of July presentation of the CramerSez podcast with Stormy of the Brainstorm podcast. We're talking about Q. Why is it still a thing? And Stormy, here's the question I have to ask. What sources of information, besides the drops, do you rely on or trust the most about Q? Is there anything else that people can go look at and be, investigate?
About Q? No. Everything I utilize outside of Q is, government documents, like the SCOTUS opinions. I go on, everything's governmental. I will say that I do utilize the document cloud, which is a really weird suppository of information. They upload millions of documents, probably 10,000 documents a day. Most of them is court documents that a lot of people don't realize court cases that are going on today. It's documentcloud.com. You can click on the logo and you can get right to it. There's like $5.6 million 6 million documents in that currently. And then, you know, I'm a data collector. I'll just be honest about me. I'm a data collector. I will have a Telegram channel that I post most of my information on. Try and post some of it on X. But X, you know how X is. They'll ban you. I've lost so many accounts. So just filtering through all the mainstream media stuff, Trump posts, you know, trying to connect dots. I love to try and connect dots, the things that make sense. You know, I don't use the Q post much anymore. What I do look at is, what's that?
Why is that?
Well, they haven't posted in over a year. I mean, I went through all of them, did all the research on the historical stuff, like the meeting on the tarmac, the Clintons, Epstein, Pizzagate, Russiagate, all that stuff. I've already personally done all that research. If you're new to the movement, I would suggest going through, reading it. They ask you questions, research it. It's out there. It's all on the internet. But the only thing I look at currently on the Q post are deltas, which means what did Q post on the day today, on that day today.
Today's date.
And today's date, correct.
Right.
So I might go look on July 4th. So you can go on the Q board, put in JUL space 04. What happened today? And every now and then, I mean, there's a weird post about the election of Speaker of the House on the exact day, on the exact number of votes it had to take. I mean, that's really the only thing I utilize Q for anymore.
Well,
now, if they post again,
we talked about that one time, and I just don't.
We did.
See, that one escapes me. I know how government works, and they're not that efficient. They can't predict it that far out. They just don't do it.
I know that's a coincidence, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So let me ask you this: it wasn't a prediction. It didn't say it was going to happen, right? It didn't say on this date this will happen, because that's a prediction. That's when we see these guys keep saying
it didn't
that Christ is coming back.
say, but it's definitely a coincidence for sure.
Well, what are some of the most significant revelations from Q that have come true that you can say this was going to happen and this is what happened? Is there a specific date, time, hour type thing, or is it always interpretation, reading the tea leaves?
It's always interpretation, reading the tea leaves. I would say exactly, you know, my podcast, I try and read the tea leaves of what happens on mainstream media. We sprinkle in a little bit of God. We sprinkle in, you know, human testimonies. We've done that recently, which I think is significant, because I think what's really going to wake up the nation is people connecting, because I mean, you have to agree that ever since our great grandparents passed away, family reunions are probably a no-go anymore. Who's had a recent family reunion and to connect with your family members? We're all about social media. We're all about TV, television, right? And it comes from Q. So we have to get back to human connection, getting back to connect with nature. You know, these huge concrete cities are not where we're supposed to be. There's so much land out there that, you know, all these homeless on the streets, on the inner cities. I mean, we could easily do something to get these homeless off the streets, and the veterans, you know, take better care of the veterans, all kinds of stuff, man. I mean, it's a lot.
Well, we've talked about Trump quite a bit tonight. We've got an election coming up. You know, he's on trial and everything else that's going on with him. What role do you think that he plays with inside the Q phenomena?
What role do I think Trump plays?
Yeah.
I think Trump can't be the source of the solution. There's no way Trump can be the source of the solution to get this country out of the situation we're in. He can't. because of Trump derangement syndrome, all the people that hate Trump. And that's all mainly because of mainstream media's doing, correct? Because all the people that now hate Trump were really good friends with Trump before he came down the escalator to say he's going to run for president, which is super weird because that tells me Trump knows more than what we know he does. Trump was also.
Well, don't you think that's an interpretation, though? I mean, do you think that he knew that he was going to lose his business in New York, that they were going to try to destroy him financially?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think once he decided to run, I think he saw the writing on the wall that they were going to come after him no matter what. I mean, he wasn't even president yet, and they're blaming Russia, right? So I think he's a spokesperson. I think, Admiral Rogers, I mean, this is in the Q drops. Admiral Rogers went to Trump Tower to meet with him in a skiff, literally says in a skiff, which I think, I hope most of your watchers know what a skiff is. It's where you can't be heard by,
Kind of like the podcast earlier this evening when no one could hear you. You were in a skiff there for a moment.
which is really weird. Why does Trump have a skiff in Trump Tower before he's even in politics? And then just recently, in regards to the classified documents, he submits paperwork to upgrade his skiff in Mar-a-Lago so that they can be in his Mar-a-Lago skiff to do the court hearings. I mean, why would a citizen have a skiff in Trump Tower before?
For most people don't know this. In many large corporations, they have skiffs. That's where they have conversations about their the most important items that they got going on. I know that there was here in Indianapolis when RCA had a design center on the north side of Indianapolis. It was a room that when you went in, you couldn't have anything on you, no electronics, anything. So I've seen that. So does it mean that Trump is been brought in by the military? I just don't see it.
I mean. I don't know. I mean, he moved out the day after he had that meeting with Admiral Rogers in the Trump Tower. He moved his personal belongings out of the tower. So that's a Q drop. You can look at it. It's early on in the Q drops. So was he selected? So you asked me what Trump's role is. Trump's role is he's a spokesperson. They didn't have anyone that was willing to stand in front of the fire of all these evil, corrupt people. In my mind, he's a badass to be able to stand up there and speak his mind and be the person he is and point out all of the corruption, not just nationally, but worldwide. I mean, what other president would you see walk across the
difference is that Trump is a populist. He's not a Republican, right? He's running on the Republican ticket, but he's a populist saying these are the problems. This is what we got to get fixed to get the nation better. And it's no different than what I do. I'm a populist. What you talk about.
Well, he was actually a Democrat, right? Before he decided to run.
That's what they said. But he gave to both sides. Again, they also said that Martin Luther King Jr. was a Democrat and he wasn't. He's a Republican. And all those white people that you see marching behind him, those are all Republicans. Those weren't Democrats supporting Martin Luther King Jr. Not back then. No. So I understand that part of it. My question, is this Trump involvement. You and I have talked about it, and this is my position. If the U.S. military is in control of this nation, as Q or QAnons assert, if Trump is in charge of that, then all the things that have gone on, the open border, the rapes and murders by the illegals, the money being sent to Ukraine, the COVID deaths and the mandates and all of the lockdowns and the businesses that were destroyed, everything that's happened over the last 4 years lies at his feet. Would you agree?
I knew you'd ask that question. That all that stuff doesn't lie at his feet. I think the machine is so much bigger than what we can even imagine. For one man, I mean,
well, I'm going to tell you.
Can you imagine military? Can you imagine military law in the streets right now, Kramer? It would be pandemonium. So when you go back to the law of war manual, there's certain things that the military are obligated to protect, and
And who exactly is doing that? Who within inside the military is doing that? Who has the power, the authority to do that? Because it ain't the guys at the top. They're woke.
Well, so let me ask you this question. Do you think we will be able to legislate our way out of the situation we're in? I don't think our legislature works fast enough to be able to get us out of the situation we're in. Do I think there's going to be an election? Probably not. They're going to do whatever they can to stop. They can't allow Trump to be president. There's no way.
That we agree on.
That we agree on. What is it going to look like? I don't know. But what is the one true piece of the Constitution is that they say their oath. Their oath swears to protect and support the Constitution. So what's saying the military is not in control, and what's saying what will be the lighting factor of when the military does take control? I don't know. It could be. I can say this: there's for no reason that our military is not already in Ukraine fighting Russia. I mean, how long would we have waited in any other worldwide war? Just send them money. We wouldn't just send money. We would have sent the military over, and we'd already been at war with Russia by now. So
that's not necessarily that we didn't go to war with China when we were war in Korea. We didn't go to war with Russia when we were in Afghanistan. So my question again goes back to Trump. If the military and Trump are in charge, then what you're saying is that what's happened had to happen to show everybody, and that the collateral damage and the women murdered and raped, that's just collateral damage. We have to just get used to it.
Well, Kramer, what would war look like if it was on the land of the United States? So are we technically currently in World War III? It's very possible, because World War I was much different than World War II when it comes to.
If the military's in charge, though, shouldn't they ask us? If the military's in charge, though, shouldn't they warn the American people that we're at war so that we know what to do to protect ourselves? Wouldn't that be a better plan than hiding what's going on?
Who's to say they haven't tried? I mean, if we depend on technology to get out information, what's saying that they haven't tried and it was blocked?
Well,
if we're looking at psyops.
Well, here's the thing, and here's where we are. I watched the documentary. I don't know if you've seen it, The Octopus Murders. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one.
What's the number one thing that those guys kept repeating over and over and over again that you have to do to make people believe, to misguide, that you tell a lie with the truth? You tell a lie with the truth. So they give you something that's partially true, and they give you something that's a lie.
80-20 rule. Yep.
Right. And you don't know what to believe, you don't know what's true and what's not. And I think that portion of this phenomena, the Q phenomena, is that when I first exposed what I thought about it, I said it's a religion. Of course, people got upset with that because they don't understand what religion doesn't mean it has to be with Jesus Christ or Muhammad or whoever else, right? A religion is based on a belief structure. You can have a religion inside a corporation, right? This is our dogma. This is what we believe. And the same thing I think has happened here is that if you look at it, it's you can do what my dad used to do. My dad's he was a minister. He can always assert some scripture to the meaning of whatever happened, right? And sure. I think that the drops have been done in the exact same way, is that they're written in such a way that it's like tea leaves or palm reading or tarot cards, that your interpretation is based on what's going on. I see you in the future with a bright red car. And the next time you see a bright red car, oh, she was right. I see a lot of that. Would you disagree?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't equate it to religion. I could see where a lot of God-fearing people would flock to Q.
Well,
but I also think a lot of what you're saying comes from the Anons, right? So Q didn't put a lot of information out there. There's only 4,000. There's only 4,000 some posts,
right?
4,083. So that's not a lot of information. The bulk of the information came from Anon.
That's my whole thing. There's no information there. It's the tea leaves. Interpret this. Go out and find out, and then you make up your own shit about it. That's what it's led to. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I wouldn't agree. They put certain information out there for people to research. I mean, did you know about the meeting on the tarmac between Clinton and Condoleezza Rice? I think it was.
Yeah, it was all in the news.
I mean, but did you know what the transfer of information was?
We all assumed.
Yeah, true.
I mean, here's the thing. You know, when you see it, just because they wrote it down and said that this had this meaning, it doesn't mean that. I work in advertising marketing. I know how to mislead. Some people, I've been very vocal about this, and Stormy's people have said, well, how do we know we can trust you? Because I'm the only one, besides Q, that's not asking you to buy shit. Hell, maybe I'm Q. You don't know that.
He could be. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, let me ask
I always
you this.
thought he was bald. I don't know.
I'll tell you what. Brain power, baby. Push those hair roots right outside the top of my head.
I got you, man.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. What would you, because here's what I've been saying. I've been, when I start posting about Q again and asking these questions, because every time I post stuff, I get stuff. See, Q predicted this, and I go, where? Show me exactly where they predicted this event was going to happen, right? And so as soon as I post something about it, people start going crazy. And I, for me at least, from my perspective, is that I want people to understand, I don't hate you. I don't think you're stupid that you believe this. But it does rely on a religion of sorts, right? Because
there's a belief for sure.
There's a belief structure. You believe in these things, and people who don't believe in it are lost. They will never be able to find the way, right? Where we go one, we go all. The mantra that everybody used at the beginning. I agree with that. Where we go one, we go all. On a planetary basis, that's true. So it applies to a lot of different things. It doesn't just mean one specific group. When you start seeing the teardown of what I saw happening, is that when I came out and said I didn't believe in Q, there was a large part of my audience that said, I can't have anything to do with you anymore. And that's what I think that Q was based on. It was to divide certain groups apart, those most likely to come together, now had something that they were fighting about. Well, you don't believe in Q? Well, I can't have a talk with you. You're paid opposition. You're paid shill. That's what we've seen time and time again. My question is that at what point, how long, does this have to go on before you would finally say it was all bullshit? What has to happen? What definitive thing has to happen for you to realize that you've been played?
I don't think there has to. I mean, Q's old right now. The last post was in 2022. I don't think there will ever be a situation where I'll say I was played, because I've done my own personal research, not put 100% of my faith in Q, not put 100% of my faith in an anon that was trying to interpret Q. I mean, it goes back to a preacher interpreting the Bible and the verses, right? Yep. You can take his interpretation if you want, or else you can just put it in your data collection and say, that's interesting. Maybe I'll come back to that later. So I don't know if there'll ever be a situation myself personally where I will say, I mean, I fully agree it was a psyop. My hope is that it was a good psyop to wake a lot of people up and change the nation and get back to our constitutional rights. Those that push back against you for saying, Q is bad, shame on them, because that's part of the issue with the country today is that everyone wants to force their own opinions on you. If your opinion doesn't even mirror them, they want to kick you to the curb. I mean, that's literally the situation we're in the country. When I remember, I'm going to go back to family reunions. I remember going to family reunions and listening to my uncles and aunts, going back and forth, not agreeing politics or whatever. But you can't do that anymore. I mean, how many people were told not to come to Christmas because they didn't take the COVID vaccine? That's bullshit. It doesn't. That shouldn't matter. Your opinion shouldn't matter. Your opinions matter. Your opinions matter to you. They make you who you are. I think that's where, on our show on Brainstorm, the testimonies, because it's the journeys that people take that makes them who they are. Either it's doing research through Q and then, thinking you find a delta that hits currently with Q. it shouldn't matter that I believe this Q post is the exact hit today when, such and such happened. It's an opinion.
Well, and that's my point, is that that's what so much of it is that these opinions based on what they believe is going on, and they attribute it to it. It's like the evangelicals back in the 1920s, the 1930s, that said the coming of Christ was going to happen, that Hitler was the Antichrist, and they were all wrong. Right, so this is what I have a strong, a lot of research when I was a kid. We didn't have a TV in the house, so I did a lot of reading when I was a kid. And what I started to understand is how people work and how they think. And so when I see this Q phenomena, I go, it's crazy. How would people possibly believe in this? You're live with CramerSez. What's your name and where are you calling from? Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I got you plugged into the wrong thing. Hold on a second here. Give me just a moment here. You got to do some fancy stuff. There we go. Now we can hear you. What's your name and where you?
Nice to have a caller. It's awesome.
My name is James Bell. I'm calling from Toms River, New Jersey.
Welcome to the show. What do you have to ask for Stormy tonight?
I just honestly want to say I can't believe how people can't realize that we're all just being played. They're all involved in it. There's no way that they can sit there and tell us that they can watch every video, read every text message, and do all this other stuff, but they can't find 1 million missing kids in our own country. Every other time we turn around, they're involved in some kind of illegal act of treason, pedophilia, money laundering, selling off our country, selling off secrets. If we don't wake up, we're not going to have nothing to wake up to, and it's all going to be gone.
I agree with you. What do you think is going to happen in November? Do you think we'll have an election?
Honestly, I don't think we'll have an election, but I honestly don't believe we should have an election because we can't trust none of them. They're all a bunch of liars, fakes, and phonies.
So what's the solution?
The solution is we come together as we the people and we start holding these people accountable who have went ahead and falsified documents, that falsified all the information. Until we come together as we the people, we will know no truths and we will know no freedoms. They will continue to pump the poisons in the air. They will continue to put the poisons in the food, the water, and they will just continue to keep everybody running this same rat race of a loop until they start talking about doing things like getting rid of the blacks law and saying what you mean and meaning what you say and standing on the facts, the truth, and the actual business end of the ordeals that everybody's working through and trying to push forward for. Then there will be no change. The other thing is join the worldwide strike July 23rd. Vote not with just your money. Vote with your opinions. Vote. Speak out on all of it. Call all the bullshit out. Don't let them gain an inch of space no more. That's the only way we will be able to get through any of this. We need to forget all the BS lies that we have all been told, and we need to push forward for a new way, especially for our children and our children's children and their children. Because remember what they keep telling us, 9 billion people, they want 500 million. Those will own nothing, eat bugs, and be happy. How serious are they? They're extremely serious. They just gave the entire world the jab. We've lost millions, if not billions of people, and they're still telling people to take it. These people are not for us. None of them. They all need to be replaced, and them nor their family members should ever be allowed to get any kind of positional powers in political offices or any kind of governmental jobs, period.
I agree with you, Jay. Thanks for your call. Stormy, what do you think about what he just said?
Dude's awake. Dude understands it all. He's done his own research. I mean, I would love to say, I would love to have asked the question if he was in the Q boards when Q was posting, because a lot of that stuff is conversations that Anons had on the Q boards when Q was posting. So I'm not saying that Q woke that person up, but whoever he's watching, however he did his research, amen, brother, you were spot on.
Well, do you think that him being awake was that the ultimate goal of Q?
I think that was the ultimate goal. Yep, to be honest, just to get people to ask questions and do their own research. I think that was the ultimate goal of Q, not to get people to stand back and relax. Because what does standing up look like? I mean, we've all seen that picture of the elites playing a board game on people's backs, and all they had to do was stand up to stop the game. What does that look like? I don't know. I mean, you literally had your current president say that you can't take on the U.S. government because you don't have an F-15. I mean, of course, I can't fly an F-15 and fight the government. So what does fighting the government look like? I think fighting the government looks like this right here. I mean, how did the revolution? How did the revolution start? The revolution started with some guys having a beer in a bar. Am I wrong?
Well, that's how it started. But what we have today is we've got an American populace that's forgotten their history. They've forgotten that we were built on revolution. That being a traitor.
Most of the history we've been lied to about the history.
No,
for
I've
years.
known this my entire life. We weren't lied to about it. Living the American dream was more important than protecting the American dream. That's what it was. People were lazy. 2020 opened up a lot of people's eyes because they had 2 years basically to sit on their ass doing nothing, getting a paycheck and realizing, well, hey, this is fucked up and it's unsustainable. I don't think that anybody needed somebody from the outside to come tell them. They started living it. You don't need Q or somebody else from the outside to come tell you that things are getting bad when you can't afford to eat. When families are choosing this, it reminds me of when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we were extremely poor. My dad made $1.71. That's what he made an hour. $1.71 an hour.
But you know what? His purchasing power back then was much better than what it is today.
No, because that's when the economy tanked. That's when OPEC did its bullshit. That's when there were times, Stormy, that we didn't have anything in the. I'd have popcorn for dinner. That's what I had for dinner was popcorn. Or there'd be times where we'd have a bologna sandwich at noon, and we wouldn't see another bologna sandwich until noon. Yeah.
All you had was Spam.
And Braunschweiger and all the cheap cuts of meat. We didn't have salmon. We
Chicken
ate mackerel.
liver.
If we ate fish, it was mackerel. So my point is that if you're paying attention to what's going on around you, then this has been here for a long time. Alex Jones was saying it. Alex Jones could be Q. I mean, it would not surprise me at all if it came out that he's Q.
He's definitely a psyop.
And again, that's my question. Whenever something happens, you just said it. Alex Jones is a psyop. What is your position? Why do you say that? It can't just be a guy that's very successful at what he does.
He is very successful, and I think I'm not. It's a shame what the government did with his interpretation of Sandy Hook, because there's a lot of questions around that scenario. I think there's a certain point when podcasters get to a certain point, there's offers made. So I question, and you can see for a lot of significant podcasts and people, whatever you want to call them. I'll throw MonkeyWorks out there. MonkeyWorks is a plane fag, is what the Q people would call him. Watching all these different plane flights, there was a certain point when I was watching. I mean, he was dropping bombs, and all of a sudden he disappears for like 48 hours and comes back. I think he was talked to and said, "Look, you're too close to certain information. We need you to change." And it's always about follow the money. Certain people paid certain amount of money
to what was his name? X22. Is that another guy that was big during
X22? Yeah, there's all kinds of good ones. Yep.
But I would listen to them. They would say, "This is going to happen. This is going to fall. This is going to." None of it ever came to fruition. None of it.
Well, that's part of reading the tea leaves. You got to be willing to say you're wrong. Right.
Well, they're wrong.
I'm more than happy to say I'm wrong.
Well, but I just ask you, what definitive proof would you have to take to say that you've been played, and you say you don't think that'll be the case? That's why I say that what the Q movement is a religion. You have faith in the unknown, the unseen, right?
That's like saying you'll walk away from God. I mean, I wouldn't walk away from my belief in God.
You just did what everybody else does, Stormy. You correlated Q with religion, believing in God. Q is of man. I don't trust anything that man says. Right?
You're spinning my words.
No, I'm not.
And that's okay. I pretty much told you that my belief in Q was based on my research, and that was the foundation of my research that woke me up to a lot of corrupt information.
No,
right?
But Q is not what you did. That's the question. Q is not what you did. If Q put this stuff out there and had you go look at it, why have you been driven to go look at that information? You found out what Q had to say, and now you sit back and you talk about what Q said. I've watched the podcast. I've seen what you guys talk about. I've seen the subject matter that the Q and the QAnons, the people who look at all of this, how they talk, and it's talk. And as soon as I started, here's the problem that I had with it, is the moment that I came in and said, I don't believe it's true, and here's why. It's unconstitutional, number one. Trump cannot be in charge of the military. There's just no constitutional...
what happened back in the Civil War? How was Abraham Lincoln still in charge of the military when he wasn't president, when Davis supposedly won? What's the difference?
Because he suspended the Constitution.
Exactly.
Well, you can't suspend the Constitution. Those are the
Abraham
rules
Lincoln.
of the playground.
Abraham Lincoln did, and he won the Civil War.
That doesn't mean it's right.
It doesn't mean it's right, but did you think it's going to take what's right to get out of the situation we're in? It's going to take some. My belief.
We're full circle. Is
my
Trump in charge? Is the military in charge?
Monarchy
to
get out of this. My belief is it's likely going to take a benevolent monarchy to get out of the situation we're in. And if you look at the Q post literally tell you there's going to be no more POTUS. It's going to turn into GEOTUS, which is General Executive of the United States of America. I mean,
are you okay with that? Are you okay with the suspension of your rights? Because the suspension of the Constitution means all of your rights are suspended, not just the ones that you want.
What rights do you currently have right now anyway, Kramer? Look at the lawfare that's going on.
That's what I'm talking about. You guys believe that your rights are being squashed. A right not exercised is a right squashed. You have to exercise it. That's why I've had 115 accounts on TikTok. Is because I refuse to be told what I couldn't say. Meanwhile,
we are too much alike.
Well, say that again.
We are too much alike.
Well, my point is that I don't use the special words. I don't kowtow. I say what I'm going to say. I don't give two fucks what somebody says I can and can't say. I'm a United States citizen. I got a piece of paper from 1776 that says I have the authority. I don't have to ask permission from my government to exercise these rights. And I think far too many people have jumped in, and they're afraid, Stormy, of exercising their rights because they fear their government. They fear that their government's going to come for them. I've said it time and time again. If you're too afraid to raise your voice, you'll never raise arms.
So today, would you go to Washington D.C. in March?
Absolutely not.
January 6th.
No, we had this conversation. It's DC is dead. There's nothing there. There's nothing to go protest in DC. Everybody in DC is owned. If you want things changed, it has to be your state legislature.
It's also foreign territory. And the people that's being jailed for January 6th, I mean, if they would have done their research, they would have known it's a foreign territory, and your constitutional rights do not stick with you in that area because it's 10 square miles of foreign territory.
That's not true. That's not true.
I disagree. So
you're telling me the residents of Washington D.C. do not have their First Amendment rights?
Yeah, I would. It's a foreign territory. It's not a state. It's not within a state. I mean, so what is it?
It's the District of Columbia.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a state. It doesn't have a flag. It doesn't have anything. What is it?
Do you know why the District of Columbia was instituted instead of having it as a state? Why isn't the capital of the United States in a state?
Why is it?
Because then everybody would perceive that state would get preferential treatment from the government that was inside it.
So who owns that land?
The people. It's ours. That's what I've been saying.
Washington, D.C.? No, I don't think so.
Washington, D.C. belongs to we the people. It's all ours. The Capitol's ours. The monuments are ours. The museums are ours. Everything that tax dollars have paid for is ours. It belongs to we the people. What's happened is people want to get into these conspiracies and not understand that that's my fucking bike the bully took. The bully's saying that bike is his. It's not his. It's my fucking bike. I'm going to take my bike back. People are afraid of the bully.
So what are the other sovereign lands within the world? Let's do a comparison. The other sovereign lands is the Vatican, right? And another sovereign land is London.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So don't those three different sovereign lands make a connection to you at all? This is where I talk about connecting points, connecting data points, right? So you have Washington, D.C., the military arm, you have London, the finance arm, and you have Vatican, the religion arm. That should exactly tell you what's going on in the world today.
Well,
those three.
If you want to interpret it that way, here's the thing that I have to say. I don't give a fuck. I have a piece of paper from 1776 that says these are the rules. I don't give a fuck what the conspiracies are. If we're not playing by these rules, then
I absolutely agree.
Then none of it matters, right? And I don't get locked up into these conspiracy theories. I want that. That's why I had a parting with religion. My dad is a minister because it was men interpreting the Bible to benefit them, to benefit their congregations and there's the sizes of their churches. That's what I saw. Now, my dad didn't do that, but he was part of ministries that did that. I had my eyes opened early. I realized how corrupt religion is. It's no less corrupt than politics or Hollywood. All the things that you see, I mean, we see it time and time again. Youth minister
religion's the people, not the steeple.
That's right.
Absolutely agree.
And so I don't have anything to do with religion. I have my beliefs. I have my faith. But it doesn't rely on other men. And that's why when I look at this Q thing and I say, well, can you explain it to me? And I start getting scriptures. The drops are used just the same as scriptures to explain, nothing is greater than I am. Trust the plan. Well, trust the plan, I have to have faith. What do I have faith in? Why would I? If you believe in God, that you believe that there was a being that came down here and sacrificed his life, if you believe in Jesus Christ, if you believe in Christianity, that's based on faith. But you haven't seen anything. There's no proof to it. It's faith, right?
I don't know if I would connect the Q post to Bible verses, but I can see where you could see that.
What I'm saying is it's scripture, right? It's what they quote to give you their position. And when you look at the structure, you have faith. Anybody who doesn't believe will not be saved, right? You have to be in this group, and you have to align and trust in the plan. But the plan is never told to you.
Do you think there's a difference between Q and the MAGA movement? Do you think there's a difference, or do you think Q has infiltrated the MAGA movement? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I think that there's MAGA that believes in Q, but I don't think that all MAGA believes in Q. I know a ton of them that think it's ridiculous.
And I don't think that Q would force MAGA to believe in Q. No, I don't think vice versa, right? Which goes back to our opinions, where you should all. Every opinion should be valued, should be honored, and should be listened to.
But what I keep hearing though is there are those of us who have been saying, "Hey, listen," just like Jay said, it's time. We've got to get off our asses. We've got to stop researching and start doing. Get off the computer and get into the streets. And I'm told, well, we can't do that. There's a plan. You don't know what the plan is.
Well,
how do you know that you getting out of the streets is a part of the plan?
I've never said anything about following a plan. I think the plan was to wake people up, and it's worked.
But that's your interpretation. That's not what it says. That's your interpretation of what the plan means. I've read their plan. You and I've talked about this. I've read their plan. I've read the Great Reset. I've read the 2030 Agenda. I've gone through a ton of the documents from the early 70s all the way through the 90s from the Rockefeller Foundation. I've read what their plan is for us. I know what they're saying it is. I haven't seen one from the other side to counter it. And researching ain't doing it. Because, I mean, look at this. Steve Bannon's in jail. Peter Navarro's in jail. 1,400 Americans who said, hey, we don't think that election was fair are in jail. We're not getting better. Things are getting worse. So everybody's awake. Everybody knows what's going on. And why isn't there more action from this side of the group? Or this? Why isn't MAGA more out there pushing?
Well, I'm curious what action looks like to you, because I don't have an F-15.
You don't need an F-15. It starts at your state legislature. That's where it starts.
Which is exactly what we're talking about, right?
No,
local action causes national impact.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, but you've got to start. You've got to go show these people that. I'll give you an example. Here in Indiana, we have the IEDC, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. It's a quasi-private public entity. And what it is in the state of Indiana, which at one point was the second most conservative state in the nation, we're now 23rd. Thank you, Eric Holcomb and Todd Houston, you fucking rhinos. Is that when we got the supermajority, we were going to be able to make a lot of change. And what they've done is they've socialized. Lilly talked them into a project in just north of Lebanon where they're taking taxpayer dollars to expand Lilly and make this big improvement, but it's all taxpayer dollars. Well, the people of Lebanon are all upset, because their property taxes went up. But when I went to go knock on doors and ask them, because I was running for office in Boone County, I go, what's your position on the LEAP project? Oh, I love it, all the progress, and then 5 minutes later be complaining about the property taxes going up. And not understanding, sweetheart, you got to pay for that company to come in because they're not paying to put the roads in. They're not going to put the infrastructure in. You are. So we can stop it. We've stopped these projects at the county level. That we started rising up saying, no, we're not going to do that. We've gotten books kicked out of the libraries because they're not appropriate for kids. If you're 18 years old, go get it. You can go get it at the library. You can get it at your porn store, wherever you want to get it. It's available. It hasn't been banned. It hasn't been burned. But there's some material that isn't appropriate for young kids. Those things we've gotten done because we've stood up. We've gotten solar farms stopped. We've gotten wind farms stopped. But you have to stand up for more than just those, because it's not those issues that are at play here, Stormy. What concerns me is that you and I are aging out, right? It's our kids behind us, and they're today being conditioned, and not just them, but their kids' kids are being conditioned on social media to shut the fuck up, do as you're told.
Well, I mean, we went through that in school too, right? You had to stand in line, not say a word. The lights went off. But you had to be quiet.
No, I agree that's part of conditioning. But today it's about your speech. That's someone
total
else
conditioning.
Say that again.
That's total conditioning. All the stuff we went through back in the 80s and 90s in school. That was complete conditioning. I mean, yeah, our kids are getting it worse today for sure. They've just slowly been ramping up. The educational system has to be completely reset. Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
But my point is that we're always conditioned. When you go into large groups, you go into a large corporation, you're conditioned by that corporation, right? There's certain things that you do and don't do that yeah. And everybody gets that. You're on with CramerSez. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name's Lori.
Go ahead, sweetheart. What's on your mind?
I wanted to ask Stormy if his podcast does anything to promote local action or do any call to action kind of things. Do you do anything like that, or do you just sit back and talk about it? I'll let you go. Thank you for talking to me.
Thanks for your call. Go ahead, Stormy.
Yeah, I think a lot of podcasts are pushing local action, national impact, educating how to get out and push. I mean, we've had a series on Brainstorm about the educational battle station. What is going on in your schools, how to do research about how much federal money your schools get. I think there's a handful of podcasters out there that are showing people how to get out, how to be active, how to, Rachel Rightside Blonde. She's in the RNC. She's her local affiliate. She actually was one of two, and the second guy pulled out. So there's information out there you have to watch. You have to get off your TV and watch the mainstream media and get to the people that are sharing the truth. There's also a lot of podcasters out there, influencers that are giving out bad information. So the gift of discernment is real. You have to be able to discern on who has honest intentions and who's trying to scapegoat you or gaslight you, like you said earlier. But there's information out there where to go meet, get to your city council, go sit and just listen and learn. Because more than likely, like Kramer said, they're trying to do something nefarious. There's a lot of money out there, a lot of grants that's going to really bad situations. I absolutely agree.
Let me, we have another phone call coming in. We're going to take a break here. But when we come back, I want to talk about the thing, Stormy, when you talk about researching, what information that you find credible. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Why pay more for your health care? Impact Health Sharing is a not-for-profit organization, meaning more savings for you. Most members save 30 to 50% on their health care costs compared to traditional insurance. Enjoy affordable healthcare without the high costs. Call 844-827-2637 to learn more about how you can save 30, 40, even up to 50% on your healthcare costs. Impact Health Sharing isn't insurance. It's affordable healthcare. Call now, 844-827-2637.
America's political prisoners need our help. CramerSez is on a mission to raise $100,000 or more. Can you help? Join our mission today at CramerSez.shop. You're watching CramerSez.
We are back. It is July 4th. You're probably getting ready to go outside and watch the fireworks. But before you get out there and start wishing America a happy birthday, we've been talking to Stormy. Stormy is on the podcast Brainstorm. And he's a believer in Q, and I'm not. And so, but we still get along. We're friends. We're not fighting each other and screaming at each other. One of the things that you said when we left is talking about research and going out and looking for information. Based on a lot of people that I've talked to with inside the Q movement, everybody at some point is a paid shill, paid operative, or opposition research or whatever. So when you're out researching and you're looking for information, how do you know that you can trust what you found?
That's an excellent question. You talk about shill and, people asking for money. A lot of people are trying to do this and make a living. I mean, a lot of people want to get out of corporations and be able to do this full time. I would love to be able to do this full time. And we have a merch store. We have a website, brainstorm.army. You can go to. It has a prayer wall. If you need a prayer request, you can put it on there. But I think where the meat and potatoes come is when you looking for their true intentions, right? And I think that comes from human interaction, which we've gotten away from. A lot of people would rather text than have a phone call. And or sit down and have a meal or have a drink together. Just pay close attention to their true intentions. Let your discernment, let your gut reaction tell you. That's really the biggest thing I can say is trust your gut. And if they're trying to be nefarious or try and push you to something horrible, that's my feedback, Kramer, to be honest.
Where do you see Q going in the next 5 years?
I have a feeling he may come back, she, whatever Q is. I have a feeling he may come back around the election day. You're right. Do I think they'll post again? I think so. I think he'll post again. If he posts, it'll probably be when the shit hits the fan, probably the end of summer, when the Summer of Love 2.0 happens, because there's going to be an inflammation. There's going to be another George Floyd. There's going to be more. There's going to be more riots.
It'll just, I don't know if you saw the story the other day. There was a report coming out of New York that one of the immigrants, the illegals that was busted for raping and murdering that young lady, that he's claiming that the detention centers and these immigrant centers are armed, and that they're going to turn them out onto the streets in September, October, November. What do you think will happen if that happens? Do you think that at that point the Q nation will rise and say we're done with this bullshit?
Well, I don't know if it'll be the Q people that will rise, but I think we have a lot of veterans. I think we have a significant silent majority. Like I said earlier, I don't know what the inflammation point, what the flashpoint is, but there's a lot of silent people, probably like myself and a lot of people watching in the chat. There'll be a point to where enough's enough. A lot of it's going to be, when prices get a little bit higher, and it's going to be a sad day if it comes to that, Kramer. I mean, I think you agree, because this country wasn't built like that. It's unfortunate that our leaders have.
It was built on revolution. And the men who signed their names to that dotted line, the men who signed that document, the Declaration of Independence, they were all traitors to the crown. And so when I hear,
and most of them died. Most of them died young.
Yep.
Most of 10, 12 of them were tortured.
Yep.
If you go back and look at who signed that paperwork, a lot of their houses were burnt down. They lost their land. It's going to be a sad day if like you said, the movement stands up and rises, because there's one thing I know that probably the world doesn't want to see is a bunch of pissed off Americans that just wanted to live their life and be left alone and have love family and friends and do their own thing in their backyard. If it comes to the point where those Americans go to the streets, Summer of Love in 2020 is going to be
Well, I think it's interesting,
pretty mild.
to tell people to keep people informed of what's going on, and that's been my thing. When I never did social media before COVID hit, I got so pissed off of what was happening and the ridiculousness of it. I was working in politics at the time, and the cowardice of the people behind the scenes. Our state leaders in the state of Indiana, starting with Eric Holcomb and Todd Houston, and my state reps and state who kept their fucking pie hole shut. We're all in this together. No, we're not. You were getting your paycheck the entire time. Some of us lost our businesses because of what you motherfuckers did. We're not happy with where this is going, and now we're told to shut up. We got to pay more taxes, and it's our fault if we question what happened. Stormy, that's where I have a problem. See, I don't know if America is ready for what has to happen next, because I think they've got this idea in their head that they have to align themselves, and they have to keep their mouth shut so that the government doesn't come after them. The government that they want to replace, well, you can't keep your mouth shut. You got to go into the playground and tell the bully, I ain't doing it, motherfucker. And that's what Trump is doing.
Punch him in the mouth.
That's what Trump is doing, and that's what everybody has to have. When I see influencers say, well, I can't say vaccine because they'll take my account, fuck you. You fucking coward. You slave. You're doing it because you want to monetize or keep followers. That was never important to me. Mine is to inform people of what's going on. And one of the things that just happened in the last few weeks here is Senate Bill 3589, which outlaws militias. They want to make your constitutional rights illegal. That you can have a state militia if it's state sanctioned, but you can't have your own. Well, the Constitution is pretty fucking clear. That second amendment said do not infringe, which is fancy for saying do not fuck with this. And so,
I agree. Which is interesting. There was a Supreme Court ruling about that, and Thomas was very clear about the AR-15s. It's a Second Amendment right. They pushed it back to the local courts, and he pretty much said, "Don't fuck this up.
Yep.
Don't make us rule on this."
Yep. I think it's time that people wake up, and maybe Q helps some do that. Here's the thing, though. I wish those people that were Q, because I think that they're the first ones to stand. When I say this, it's funny to me. Kramer, if we stand, they'll just use that as an excuse for martial law. They ain't waiting on an excuse. Did they wait on an excuse to release a pathogen on the American public? Did they wait on an excuse to mandate that you take a drug? Did they wait? No, they did what they were going to do. The bully doesn't wait on you. The bully's going to do what the bully's going to do. The thing that upsets the bully is when you stand up and you use the knowledge, whether you got that from Q or from whatever other source, is that you stand up and you tell the bully no. That's how the bully knows that they're losing power. That's what's happening with the Biden administration right now. Let me ask you one last question before we go here. If you could communicate one message about Q to the public, what would you want that to be?
The one message if you've never seen Q, if you don't know what Q is, don't take mainstream media's interpretation of Q and QAnon, because there's no such thing as QAnon. Go look at the board yourself. Go look at the posts. Just look at the Q post, nothing else. Don't. And it's qalerts.app or qpub.com, I think it is. Just go look at the Q post, read them, and do your research based off of what the Q posted. That's all I ask. Don't take anyone else's fluff. Don't take anyone else's interpretation. Don't take mine. Don't take all the big influencers like who was it you was going after? Rum the other day. Did I see that? Don't take their interpretation.
I don't remember.
Don't take their interpretation. Do your own.
I do what Rogan calls I post and ghost.
Yeah, just do your own research. Just go read it. If you haven't read it, go read it. Is there stuff out there? Is there stuff they posted that hasn't happened yet? I saw someone posted about the Hillary arrest on 10/30. Has it happened yet? No. Who's to say it's not going to happen this year? Who knows? If it does happen, I'll come back on your show, Kramer, and I'll say
I would love to.
Can't deny this Q post.
Yep. Well, and that's my point. Is that it's 10-20
who's going to replace Biden? Do you think it's really going to be Kamala, the anchor maybe, or do you think they're going to try and slip Hillary back in there?
They can't do anything else. That's what people keep saying. They can't just replace him. They've got. I mean, the succession of power. This is why it won't happen, because Kamala goes in. They don't get to place a new VP. Right?
No, it's going to be interesting.
The Speaker of the House goes up. Mike Johnson goes up. They're not going to let Mike Johnson
be the VP. Whatever they do is going to be unconstitutional. Right?
Well, no, I think they have to be done by the Constitution. And what I mean by that is that everything the Nazis did was by the law. That's how they got it passed. Everything that they did was legal. They passed laws and they finagled laws to be able to do what they needed to do, and it was all within inside the framework of law. They were, but is it within inside the spirit of the Constitution or the spirit of the law? It's not, and that's the issue. Stormy, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And I'll be back with closing thoughts right after this.
Preventive care and mental health are essential. Impact Health Sharing offers annual wellness visits and mental health support. Take care of your body and mind with affordable healthcare solutions from Impact Health Sharing. Experience comprehensive care for your overall well-being, mind, body, and soul. Call 844-827-2637 now to learn more about how you can save 30, 40, even up to 50% on your healthcare costs. Impact Health Sharing isn't insurance. It's affordable healthcare. Call now.
America's political prisoners need our help. CramerSez is on a mission to raise $100,000 or more. Can you help? Join our mission today at CramerSez.shop. You're watching CramerSez.
I'd like to thank Stormy for coming onto the show tonight and talking about Q. I've been very vocal about it from the very beginning that I don't believe it. I believe that if it did have a purpose, that purpose was served, and it's been hijacked and monetized by a bunch of people that are just trying to be carnival barkers and snake oil salesmen. They don't know anything more than you or I know. Everything that they say and do is guesswork. As Stormy said tonight, so much of it is interpretation. And interpretation going too far, well, it's no different, folks, than the interpretation of what the Supreme Court said on Monday. And suddenly, Harry Sisson and others are saying, well, then that means that Biden could take Trump out with SEAL Team 6. That's the mentality of interpretation, not based on fact. I think that we've got to open our eyes and understand that this nation is in a precarious position right now, that it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And what Stormy said is true, that we are the solution. We the people, Jay, the caller that called in, we're the solution. We're the plan. If there's a plan for Q, I'm not saying that there is, but it has to be us. We cannot rely on a mythical being or somebody else out there that's going to do the heavy lifting for us. One of the things that you'll find in Christian faith is faith. You have to have faith. But even in the Bible, it says faith without action is meaningless. It has nothing. It's an empty prayer. It's a wish. It's a hope. For us to be a better nation, to move forward, you have to play a part. You have to make your voice heard. The bully understands one thing only: force and power, because that's what they use to get you to do what they want to do. The reason that the American people have their pie hole shut, they're afraid to speak out, is because the FBI might come knock on their door. I'm telling you, folks, if there's any sign that you're in trouble in your nation, it's when you're afraid to speak out against your government. That's why our founding fathers did what they did in 1776. That's why they put their lives, their livelihoods, their families, everything on the line for that piece of paper. And if you're worried about monetizing, or you're worried about losing your job or losing your home, if you're worried about stepping out against the government, that they might come, folks, that's exactly the reason we have this document. Our founding fathers didn't have it. They didn't have the protections of that document. It doesn't start in D.C. It starts in your local community. It starts with your local mayor, your local sheriff. Are they abiding by the Constitution? And will they protect your rights? Will they stand up and protect the Constitution when others come against you? When you go to the state level, or your state legislature, are they doing the right thing? Are they doing what's best for the people? Are they abiding by the Constitution? Or are they doing the same exact bullshit that's happening in Washington, D.C.? You fix your state legislature, we fix D.C. We don't have to worry about D.C. D.C. has no power. Your state could nullify anything and say, listen, we're just not doing it anymore. The state legislature has that power. It's happened time and time and time again. What you have to understand, folks, is that the authority and the power, it's in you. It lies in you. They don't have any. Jim Jordan is not going to be our saving grace. Donald Trump's not going to be our saving grace. We are. And it starts with saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I will not comply. I'm not going to believe this new lie. I don't care. I know it sounds crazy. Ain't going to do it. You got simple rules in my life. I listen to what the common sense is. We've seen what science can say. We were told what the science was, and then we learned that the science was a lie. Why? Well, because it was by man. It was a product of man. Man cannot be trusted if they have an agenda. What's my agenda? My agenda is to get our nation back. I would love to return to 2019. Remember how good everything was in 2019? Right? $2 gas, 2.7% interest rate on buying a home, jobs everywhere. Yeah, 2019 was pretty fucking awesome. I'd like to get back to 2019. I don't think that we can do it, though, through the election process and through legislation. I think it's going to take more than that. Someone said, you're calling for revolution, you're calling for civil war. I'm calling for action of the American people to do and exercise the authorities and the rights that they have. We don't have to keep these motherfuckers. They serve at our pleasure. They don't have any authority that we don't give them. The federal government has no rights. They only have powers. And those powers that aren't listed in the Constitution, they go back to the states. They belong to us, we the people. It's time that we pick up arms against our state legislature. And when I say by arms, I don't mean going in there and gunning them down. That's not the solution at this point. But arm yourself with information. And then go hold them accountable. Make them feel uncomfortable. What Maxine Waters said works. That's why the left does it. The right has to do the same. We have to understand their tactics and their strategies to beat them. And we can't if we're too afraid. If we're afraid of the institutions that they currently run, we can never beat them. The solution is us. With that being said, I'm out of here. This is the CramerSez podcast. We'll be back tomorrow or as soon as we can. We'll see you then.
Why pay more for your health care? Impact Health Sharing is a not-for-profit organization, meaning more savings for you. Most members save 30 to 50% on their healthcare costs compared to traditional insurance. Enjoy affordable healthcare without the high costs. Call 844-827-2637 to learn more about how you can save 30, 40, even up to 50% on your healthcare costs. Impact Health Sharing isn't insurance. It's affordable healthcare. Call now. 844-827-2637.
America's political prisoners need our help. CramerSez is on a mission to raise $100,000 or more. Can you help? Join our mission today at CramerSez.shop.